Uh,
Right.
Greetings. Namo Amida Butsu.
Hello. Namo Amida Butsu.
And speaking of Nabutsu, shall we
Yes, absolutely.
do some before we?
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda.
No.
All right. Well, I think we have some
things to discuss.
Yeah.
And we might still be able to, continue with what the series that we started last time, even with me raising what I want to raise, but about my sort of doubts, and not doubts, but just I don't know, frustrations, karmic situation, yeah, and my frustrations on the path, very strong recurring on the path, which kind of come down to, well, on the one hand, there's kind of the worlds I kind of see myself strongly in this sort of provisional lifetime, provisional rebirth, in the human realm. I do have some very strong characteristics of the lower realms in my life, particularly the ghost realm, the Preta realm. There's a lot of things around my life that I go, oh yeah, that's another thing that's very like a Preta. Do you know what I mean? There's a lots of things, as well as like my reaction sometimes it can be in the animal realm, quite fight or flight kind of thing, very strongly, and other aspects of things, and then in both of those, at times my response to life has been very much like a hell being, that just can't, just so feeling so powerless and so hopeless and so that I can't even think, or function. That's not currently, or even in many recent years, but in the past, I've been there, and and mentally, I would say I go there from time to time. But there's a lot around that. Well, I'll come back to that. So yeah, so that's the one side, and the complications of all that, and then the human realm part of it. I have very strongly the human realm ability to think and perceive and imagine, and do you know what I mean? And which kind of, along with the other things, kind of can be you know what I mean? If you're coming at it from a, the lower realm perspective, that doesn't, it's not a good combination sometimes. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, so it gives a whole new meaning to existential angst. It's like spiritual angst, like it gives a whole nother level of that type of thing. But anyway, so the actual, the frustrations with the path, I'll try to summarize it very quickly and briefly, but like there's the one aspect of a lot of it all is around, it's all the promise or the understanding or the teaching is around future. It seems like it's a future event, it's a future thing. Future, Shinjin will be settled in the future. Going to Pure Land is in the future. Being able to even being able to entrust in the, and to hear without doubt, or to take, as we say, take Shakyamuni, or the teaching at its word, that all those aspects of faith, the faith mind consciousness, are in the future as well, because all of that has to come from Amida. All of that is, all of that comes from Amida. And so, you know, and in addition to the benefits that are, you know, kind of outlined or described at different points in the teachings, you know, sort of the 10 benefits of Shinjin while we're here, and then 10 benefits, obviously, of the Pure Land. But again, that's all future. It's all future stuff, you know. And then there's the and then I get to a point where I'm like, well, you know, and there's another aspect of it. Benefits aren't, it's not, there's no, in one sense, this is actually a good thing about Shinju. In another sense, it's kind of not. There's not a promise of like things in this life, improving conditions and things in this life, in any specific way, other than, again, when Shinjin is settled, just more I don't know, just betterment to your kind of, I don't know, karmic condition to some extent, whatever form that takes. You know what I mean?
I think what you are thinking of is probably at the end of the Lotus Sutra, where famously it very, very clearly lays
outlines,
out.
And well, this is the thing where I was just going to come to that. Obviously, I'm, you know, which is, you know, that's my other, you know, the other sort of Mappo school of Buddhism is sort of Tendai / Nichiren / Lotus Sutra related kind of Buddhism. And so this is the other thing, is that there's, yes, we deeply listen, we dialogue, but it's not, okay, so this is another thing, come back to the Lotus Sutra. You have very defined actions that you take that are actually your expressions of shinin or faith, you know, in what the Lotus Sutra describes. This is how you act it out, and it's very specific, you know, keep and hold, you know, read, recite, expound, copy. You know, they're very doable things. They're not like, you're not trying to, you know, you're not trying to achieve mind states. You're not, and then, you know, say Damoku, you know, that's the other, in terms of Nichiren, the Nichiren kind of school. I almost, like I say, I do kind of see Nichiren Buddhism as kind of almost a school of Tendai, you know, a kind of specific, you know, kind of.
Yeah, it's much closer, I think, to Tendai than the other Mahayana schools like Pure Land and Zen, because both Dogen and Shinran kind of largely, not entirely, but largely sort of turned away from a lot of Tendai core doctrines and went to other things. Whereas Nichiren actually in Nichiren Buddhism, I forget what it's called, Ichinen Sangi, is it? Maybe, or something like that.
Ichinen Sanzen. You're talking about Ichinen Sanzen.
Yeah.
3,000 worlds in a single moment of life. 3,000 worlds or 3,000 realms, 3,000, you know, in a single moment of life. You know, based on the 10 worlds, the 10 conditions, or suchnessnesses, and the 3 realms. Sorry, go ahead.
Which is a Tendai doctrine from from actually China, Tiantai. You know, it's actually not.
Exactly. Tiantai. ZE was the main.
And of course, Tendai also has the Lotus Sutra, holds the Lotus Sutra as the highest supreme sutra too, which is exactly what Nichiren also taught. So in that sense,
who holds that? Who?
Tendai.
Exactly. Yeah, there's lots. I mean, that's kind of what it evolved out of. You know, kind of just. It almost seems like he kind of just honed it down to. You know, because Tendai did eventually come to include like lots of things, it was like, there's actually, I almost see Tendai is almost the most holistic Buddhism school, because it really incorporated everything from, Shingon, which is kind of the Vajrayana, kind of, and then the esoteric, and then you've got the, it's got the Pure Land aspects, and it's got the, just about every Mahayana, teaching is kind of one way or another part of that, but anyway, so it gives these specific things and very specific, and when I've done those, because in my journey with exploring Jodo Shinshu, I've also been off and on exploring Nichiren and Tendai and Nichiren Buddhism in the same kind of time period. It's almost like, Kamakura Buddhist is my own Kamakura period of Buddhism. And I'd say almost maybe 50-50 in that time period, maybe a bit more, maybe more 60-40 or something, if you break it down into that kind of thing, more Jodo Shinshu than Nichiren, or pretty, I've explored them both quite a bit, and which is kind of interesting because certainly I don't think the Lotus Sutra really is as critical of Pure Land Buddhism and Pure Land teachings as, and if at all, as Nichiren kind of was in places, but so
famously.
Famously, yeah. So, but I don't see the Lotus Sutra really necessarily being having those same issues necessarily around any other school of Buddhism. But anyway, so what was I going to say? It was more. It more has a problem. It more has a more is strongly critical of the attitude of certain practitioners, I think, than or what they think of themselves. I think is they're inflated, arrogant. I'd say that's more what you see in the Lotus Sutra as. Anyway, but so what I'm trying to say is very specific things, very specific, and I've experienced the degree some of them, whereas I don't have that similar experience with Jodo Shinshu. There are times where I feel, yes, I'm very much in the flow of it, and I'm doing all these things like we've been doing over the past, year and a half or whatever it's been, 2 years, and in other times when I've been, part of other sanghas.
I am curious. I want to clarify, just if I can ask a little bit, drill down, speak a little bit more on that. Could we expand Jodo Shinshu here to include the Pure Land schools in general? Like, in other words, what I want to ask is, have you ever practiced the Nimbutsu, not necessarily in a Jodo Shinshu context, but
yes,
in the early, what was your experience with that? Is what I would like to kind of ask.
Well, my experience with that is somewhat confusing sometimes because of the mixing with certain schools of Pure Land Buddhism. They mix other traditions, which is fine, but for me, I found it confusing because I thought, well, we're supposed to be relying on Amida, and I can see, okay, a bit of self-power, there's certain things you should do and things, that's fine, but then bringing in all these other sort of so I find that confusing about more traditional or non-Jodo Shinshu Pure Land Buddhism, except for like maybe the Shantao sort of, one's school, like where it sticks very much to kind of Chantao's teaching, which is kind of like Honen, basically, more or less.
And to clarify, do you mean the modern Shandao school?
Not necessarily. Just when it sticks more to the focus on Amida Buddha, and
so probably,
and even and I was fine with it being being a certain amount of like, yes, you should do do you know what I mean? With the Nimbutsu, you should practice in a certain way. And like I kind of was, fine with that, but would find it hard to sustain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the other aspect is, is being very much a creature of Mappo.
Yeah.
And karmic conditions of a bambu, is the lack of, discipline and lack of certain, certain things that you need for practice. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. The reason I asked is because there's a lot. I don't want to necessarily limit, the Nimbutsu or even the Pure Land tradition, just Jodo Shinshu. There's a lot of different, for example, in China, after Shantou, there was no Pure Land school. There was a Pure Land, gate, Dharma gate within the larger Buddhist establishment, but it was always mixed with Zen. It was never seen as an independent, thing from Zen. It was Honen that,
true.
because Honen was reading through all of the Buddhist scriptures, and he stumbled upon the passage in Shandao's writing where it says, anyone who says the name even 10 times will be born in the Pure Land because it is in accord with that Buddha's vow. And that for Honen was where he just completely, boo. And so Honen actually established Pure Land as an independent school, Jodo Shu, which, Shinran also called it Jodo Shu. The modern school of Jodo Shu is only one of many, including Jodo Shinshu, of many schools, but the interpretation that we as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists have of Shandao is very much Shinran and Honen's interpretation. Because if you just read Shandao from zero, you might come up with all kinds of other things. And I think Reverend Jerome DeCore, though, has done some really good work in showing that Shandao, considered historically and independently from the Shinshu tradition, did in fact emphasize the vocal Nimbutsu. And I think Jerome DeCore is a very much an expert in the texts and so on. And so I definitely think he is correct in saying that. Because there are some people who say that Shandao didn't even in particularly recommend, emphasize the saying Namo Amida Butsu. But I think there's enough evidence to support that.
It just seems like, and also that's another thing where it gives these very, in other Pure Land schools, it's very much a similar thing of very specific instructions for very specific kind of benefits to it. Do you see what I mean? Kind of, or very, and again, somewhat that I've experienced when I've done it in a non, that's not to say I haven't experienced really amazing things in Jodo Shinshu. And I know that's not what it's about. I know that none of Buddhism is about some kind of euphoric experience or, do you know what I mean? But there are many good things that I have in all this time on this path derived and experienced through my pursuit of Jodo, through Buddhism in general, any of these paths, and including Jodo Shinshu is what I'm trying to say. Very good things. And I would say with Jodo Shinshu, one of those things is that it's helped me understand Buddhism in general from the Jodo Shinshu perspective. It makes the other things make more sense. And I've also had a similar thing with Nichiren Buddhism as well. Actually, those two have given me the best understanding, I'd say, of just overall teachings of Buddhism and Buddhist cosmology Do you know what I mean? So that's a huge thing, but that's a huge thing for my Jodo Shinshu experience as well, is a much better understanding of what just Buddhism in general is all about. And but okay, so that's, and then there's one other aspect with the leaning toward the Nichiren side of things when I do that, is, or the Tendai side of things, say, is, how you said, did you say it was a modern teacher or a master that, or a past Monshu or someone said that basically the Pure Land Sutra or one of the Pure Land Sutras and the Lotus Sutra are essentially the same sutra, or pointing to the same thing.
Yeah, not the same sutra, but the same truth.
The same truth.
Yeah, who was that? It was Kakunyo Shoni.
Kakunyo Shoni.
It was one of the early Monshu of Hongonji, which was the Otani Mausoleum. He was the second or third of the caretaker, of the mausoleum that Shinron's daughter built.
Okay.
In Eastern Kyoto.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Excellent. So here's the thing, and also the teachings in Jodo Shinshu that sort of point toward, okay, what Amida has been doing for 10 kalpas was going on even before that with the original Buddha, beginningless time, but we just it couldn't be grasped, it couldn't be understood before that. So there were all kinds of provisional paths, and finally it was time for, okay, it's time for Dharmakara, it's time for, and then Amida Buddha, and then that's, do you see what I mean? So, referencing, looking at that teaching, if you look at the Lotus Sutra and you look at chapter 16, that where the Buddha, makes the revelation that I'm actually, I've taught all these bodhisattvas for measurable kalpas, and what's his Maitreya's like, hang on, oh, hold on, wait a minute. So you're saying, do you know what I mean? How can you have taught all these bodhisattvas but you've been teaching, less than 40 years or whatever now, whatever. And then he explains, well, actually, I am the original Buddha. I'm the, So what I'm saying is, to me, it seems like the Lotus Sutra, that is almost like it's the eternal Buddha, the original Buddha, doing essentially the same thing. Here's a path for people, for everyone, that everyone can do. With these 5 things, and with reliance on the sutra, and do you know what I mean? There's a lot of similarities actually between Nichiren Buddhism and Pure Land Buddhism, but in those different aspects. But so that's another thing that I'm like, it's almost like it's like saying, well, yeah, this is the going to the source kind of thing. Do you see what I mean? Going. So,
by the way, it's just to clarify for anyone who might be watching, the Rinyo references this idea too, but basically when Shakyamuni was on Vulture Peak, he was preaching the Lotus Sutra, and then he actually left. He came down from Vulture Peak to visit Queen Videhi to preach the Contemplation Sutra. Now, whether any of that is historical is a whole different, question. But that's the tradition, let's say, or the idea that arose to, and I don't actually know where that idea originated. Maybe there are scholars who do, but I don't know that Kakunyo Shonin necessarily invented that idea. It might
no, I think there's something with the
be
locations in the Lotus Sutra and the location of one of the Pure Land Sutras, which I think is the Contemplation Sutra, is the one that he delivered to Vaidehi, was the Contemplation Sutra. But I think it's the locations that I thought that's where that came from. But anyway.
But I think if you look at it from the broader perspective of Mahayana Buddhism, there's this tendency that developed to really focus on the sort of the eternal truth that Shakyamuni awoke to, and to the point where that truth was seen as what we call the Tathagata, the thus come one. And Shinran makes this very, very clear. He very clearly says this, is that it's not that the historical Buddha, the person of the Buddha, awakens necessarily to this truth, but rather that this truth actually manifests through the person of the Buddha. So it's actually a reversed. We talk about the reverse polarity. The typical way, for example, that Theravada Buddhism views Shakyamuni's enlightenment is that Shakyamuni was essentially a man. Of course, this is it's arguable about as to how historical this is, but anyway, a man who sort of had this experience and came in contact with the truth of the Dharma and then taught that truth, right? So it's kind of more, they tend to emphasize the from the human to the Dharma, whereas in Mahayana we emphasize from the Dharma to the human, so to speak. It's actually the reverse.
Right. Yeah. That's very good. Very good. Yeah.
We look more at the coming from so the thus come one is actually the one who has come from thusness, from the truth of things. The truth of things as they are is, coming to in our direction in the person of the Buddha. So whether that Buddha is Shakyamuni or Amida or any of the other Buddhas, they're all doing the same job, basically, right?
Exactly. Which kind of points to the idea, the teaching of the one vehicle, being, that just the implications in the Lotus Sutra that, there's the one vehicle, but basically it's all Buddhism. Like, so if you sincerely, properly practice whatever you're doing, it will be the one vehicle. Almost like there's in the writings of Jodo Shinshu, and I think I don't know if it's Shinran referring to this or something he's commenting on that has said it, but where it talks about other practitioners of other Pure Land schools, other Pure Land school approaches, they will, even though they don't know the true teaching, they will eventually have settled Shinjin, even without. Do you see what I mean? It's a similar in the Lotus Sutras, kind of the implications, as I see it, the Lotus Sutras, that pretty much any path of Buddhism, as long as it's an authentic path, whatever the provision of it is, if it's practiced properly, eventually that will turn into the one vehicle. Do you see what I mean? So anyway, so here, this is, so that, so that's both the frustration and then the temptation, of, what is pulling me toward, the Lotus Sutra teachings rather than the Pure Land teachings. And, I was saying before we started the recording that, when I've talked to you by messenger, it's usually later in the day or in the evening, and I'm really viscerally feeling the frustrations about this stuff. But then when we get here, and I'm, even the day I wake up, the day of the, we're going to have our Dharma talks and have the dialogue, I suddenly am like more positive and not as frustrated, and do you know what I mean? And ready to really talk about it, and and be honest with that, but just still have an open mind. Whereas my mind isn't, in the evening when I'm talking about it, when I'm really in it,
Right.
and it's all in and locked down, I'm like, F this, like, do you know what I mean? Bleepity blanking, you know what I mean? And but I don't feel that. And as I said to you earlier, I think that's partly the power of the teaching, but partly the power, knowing that's where I'm coming to be. This to me is it's a you're when I'm the day of the Dharma dialogue and things. It's a kind of, there's a reverence to that for me. There's a sacredness that I'm coming into a sacred Buddhist aspect of things, and somehow there's power in that, and also power of the sangha, connecting with the sangha. That's, I think, one of the main aspects of this. So I don't feel that visceral frustration, but let me tell you, when I'm on my own, it's very strong and frustrating. And and this is the thing I'd like to at some point discuss. Are there and I know Shinran came to his own point of Shinran Shonen, came to a point where 20 years, he did 20 years of, in Mahayana Buddhism and Tendai, and he was like, he really did it, and he got to, what am I doing? I'm not accomplishing it. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not the similar feelings like I had, obviously I'm not at all comparing myself in any way, shape, or form on any level to Shinran Shonen and his, level of practice in those things and doing those things, and like at all. His knowledge, his understanding, his scholarly, do you know what I mean? His accomplishments, his not at all. Like, I'm not in any,
right.
But that's one area where I see he had a similar kind of response to the teaching. Like, okay, I'm not getting anywhere. What, after all this time, 20 years, and that's almost me. I'm almost doing this 20 years, well, 16, 17 years, whatever. You know what I mean? And like, where am I? What am I doing? Where am I? I'm not getting anywhere. What do you know?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so there's that. But I was wondering if there was any other of Shinran's followers, Shinran's followers, or Renyo's, Sangha that were, I mean, Renyo's, you know what I mean by the ones that were in his time, or any other, teacher of the, in the Hangwanji tradition, where he had these similar frustrations about it, or voiced similar. Now, I know at those times in Japan, people didn't have a lot of time for spiritual angst. Okay, so it might not be to the same level or be expressed in the same way, because they were living in like medieval Japan, survival. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't, there's certain things you didn't say or question, or so it's a different context, but something somewhat not equivalent, but congruent with what I'm experiencing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally get where you were coming from. I think,
and what was said to them, or what was this, what was discussed with them in their difficulties, and
right. And I know a more modern teacher of Jodo Shinshu and the Hongwanji tradition, of course, is Zuiken Inagaki sensei. And he really spent a lot of time and talking about this problem.
Okay.
Called it, he would describe it as like hitting the wall.
Yes, that's exactly. And I've actually used that. Yeah, I've actually used that before. Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know he actually said that. He could say hitting the wall. Yeah.
And he wrote a book that I actually helped a friend of mine translate into English on the topic that addresses a lot of these issues. Our mind that just doesn't change, like you said in your messenger text. I've been doing this for 18 years, and what's changed? And that's the the paradox is that what does change about our unenlightened mind,
Yeah.
And Shinron says, a prithik jhana, a worldling, a bamboo, the same word in Sanskrit, Japanese, and English, is that it doesn't, our bonno, our blind passions and so on don't cease. They continue up until the end of life. But in terms of the frustration of feeling like, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm no closer to Shinjin, or to believing, or to faith, or whatever it is, right, that we're trying to get closer to. I definitely relate to that. I think everybody has to kind of puzzle it out in their own way. I do think that one way of doing that is to discuss with other people and, compare notes, as it were, But the reality is that there's a place where the unhindered light of wisdom is just constantly shining here and now, and it's shining on each of us. And I liked what my friend Reverend Ray talked about. He gave a Dharma talk, and he said, the causes, what we're trying to do is we're trying to puzzle out, how do I get Shinjin? How do I do this, do that? But the causes and conditions, those causes and conditions of our birth in the Pure Land have already been puzzled out and worked out by Dharmakara Bodhisattva. That whole, the work it's all prepared and is freely being given, and we just have to open ourselves to receive it. Now, that of course is all very easy to say, and I know it's easy to say, and not so easy to actually come to terms with in terms of daily practice and so on. But I do think that there is power in saying the Nimbutsu. I think even if you're not all the way there, and I do get the frustration of, not being all the way there, where whatever there is, right? But I think that if you come, let's just say, rather than viewing it as like an all or nothing, because sometimes it's the way our minds frame things, right? That is the problem, not necessarily the teaching itself per se, but just the way that we're approaching it. And this is why I always like to more emphasize the sort of metaphors like Rinyo used about water drilling a hole in stone, or the sun, warming the clothing from the bottom to the top, and so on. Now, I know you said in your message, well, I don't feel that I've gotten anywhere. I think is how you put it.
Or been brought anywhere, I think is a more appropriate way to put it. But then again, that's, you could always say, well, that's my bamboo perception and understanding, and you know what I mean.
I could go to full Zen and say, since dharmas don't arise and they don't perish, where is there to go?
It's almost the flip side of that. Yeah.
But of course, we're not as in school, and of course, however much you beat a bamboo over the head with the ultimate truth of things, it's not necessarily gonna wake them up. But it is a path that is really about becoming aware that this light and this name, Namo Ninabutsu, which is kind of the embodiment of that light, of that wisdom, which, by the way, is the same wisdom that Shakyamuni awoke to. Shinran says that Amida is the wisdom, the light of Amida is the wisdom of all Buddhas. This wisdom light is shining on me, and it's not something you can necessarily like logically lay out and say, you know, this is what it feels like. But I think when you become aware of that, I want to share briefly a passage from the History of Indian Buddhism by, I don't know if I can share my screen.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't switch all that over. 1 sec.
And because this isn't,
There you go.
I'm not saying this is a one-for-one, okay, share. A one-for-one parallel with, you know, Shinshu doctrine or whatever. But I think this is from the book, The History of Buddhism, Indian Buddhism, that we were looking at last time. And he's talking about, you know, samskaras and a person's experience in consciousness. And he goes on and says, a precondition for samskara is avidya, or ignorance. Avidya in Sanskrit, avidya in Pali. In this instance, ignorance refers to the absence of correct knowledge. An ignorant person does not know that impermanent phenomena are in fact impermanent. He is unable to see things as they actually are. Ignorance is not an active quality. Rather, various delusions are produced when other mental activities are influenced by ignorance. Everything that a worldling, or prithajana, this is bamboo, by the way, in Japanese, sees is influenced by ignorance. However, just as a dream ceases as soon as a person realizes that it is a dream, so does ignorance disappear as soon as a person realizes that it is ignorance. And the reason I wanted to share that is because I think there is something valuable in the Jodo Shinshu experience of coming to realize that one is in fact ignorant. It's an awakening.
Well, that's a huge that's something I didn't mention earlier. That's a huge benefit of Jodo Shinshu in particular, that is, you know, is seeing that, you know, you have, you know, I had a notion of that, which is general Buddhism and kind of Taoism, you know, when I was still kind of Buddhist Taoist kind of thing. And I mean Taoism in the broader Taoist sense, not just philosophical Taoism, all the different kind of, but but anyway, so, you know, you kind of see that to a degree, but it just gets fine-tuned once you're brought into that, you know, once the light comes to you through to a degree through the Pure Land path, but then eventually with the Jodo Shinshu, it's just, it's like a lightning focus, laser focus of that on your just the extent and the variety of ways of your, you know, just how the depth of your of the ignorance, the depth of your bamboo-ness, the depth of your worldling. I love that worldling interpretation.
Worldling,
yes. Bloody worldling. You know, pardon my English French there. As they say. Anyway, so but you know, just that's been a huge, you know, aspect of it. I had a lot before the light, the focus of Jodo Shinshu. I didn't have that, the scope, the understanding of the scope. I had an understanding from standpoint of maybe karma and the experience of my life. I was like, yeah, something's really wrong. I had there's something really seriously wrong, but it wasn't as specified or specific as, or the depth of it that I learned and, came to learn through Jodo Shinshu, and just in dialogue, in discussion, in the teachings, in the readings of that. I had so that's a huge, and I guess you could say that's the light of Amida. That's shining. That's that light reaching through, and that so we can see that truth. But anyway,
I think I mean, I think we want results, and we want to get somewhere, and we want confirmation, and there's all these things that we want, right?
I want, I need, give me, I need. What about Bob?
And I'm not saying like some of those expectations, I think we should have certain expectations of a spiritual path. And does it satisfy me, my religious, so to speak, needs? And is it a path that I feel genuinely attracted to and comfortable in and on and with?
And also, this is the other thing I want to discuss is aren't people kind of karmically have certain karmic causes and conditions that they should be doing different types of different schools of Buddhism, that they have karmic ties with that path. They have karmic ties with, do you see what I mean? There's a lot in the actual teachings themselves that say that about Lotus Sutra. We're talking about Lotus Sutra. Your karmic ties with Lotus Sutra, or in Pure Land Buddhism and Jodo Shinshu, karmic ties with Amida, karmic ties with the teaching, karmic ties with these sutras. And I think similar to other paths, there's, so that's another part of this,
right.
Should I be doing here?
No. And I do think it's good and important, obviously, to compare and to contrast different paths and find out what fits for you. But I also would like to say that I feel more like it's not so much that I I made an impartial analysis of every Buddhist or Japanese Buddhist school, and then decided Jodo Shinshu is the school for me. I'm going to practice this school until the day I die. I never made that kind of conscious decision. It's more like it came to me. It sort of grabbed me almost, so to speak. I was just naturally, I found myself being drawn to the Pure Land Sutras. I found myself being, whenever I would read, Shinron's writings, like a Notes on Essentials of Faith Alone, it's like every time I read it, it's like reading it for the first time. So I knew this was something that would constantly be giving me some spiritual meaning and so on. And then also the light, Amida Buddha as light, which is a very Shinshu formulation, really kind of unique to, it's of course in the sutras as well, but in the larger sutra, at the end of the larger sutra, there's a famous passage where it says that everything, it was like when Amida kind of is revealed, so to speak, because they ask, can we see Amida? We want to see this Buddha.
Exactly. I wish to see that land. I love the way it's
and so Amida appears, and in the very end, there's this passage that all things, only the Buddha's light was left shining. So from this, Shinron drew that, the real nature of Amida is this light, this inconceivable, you know, and that's what I love about Jodo Shinshu is we're told that we can't conceive of it.
Yeah.
Namo Fukashigi Ko. Namo Fukashigi Ko Butsu means I take refuge in the light that I can't conceive of. You know, what a interesting paradox. You know, I refuge in something I can't possibly understand, but which is reaching to me, and I feel when you're touched by that light, like the sutra says, you feel the peace and the goodness of the Buddha, and the assurance of Amida's, you know, vow to save all beings regardless of who or what they are or where or when. You feel that, you know, and it's not like,
you know,
words, but I have felt that, and I have felt that is reliable and something that I can, as you know, as we say, take refuge in, you know. And so that
I feel like that. See, this is an area where this is another aspect of this, is that I don't consistently feel that. I haven't.
Well, I don't think that you have to
haven't,
feel it
or not like it's some kind of thing, but like, I don't, you know, there's times where I just don't, you know, and again, that could come back to, well, yeah, you're a bamboo, or, well, what's going on here? You know, do you know what I mean? Like, it causes the questioning, you know, it caused me to question, like, well, what am I, why am I, you know what I mean, doing this if most of the time, or a lot of the time, I'm, you know, but again, that can come down to the bamboo thing, and that it come down to the calculating mind and all of that, which I made a point about that too. But anyway, sorry, finish your thought you had there. Sorry.
Well, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, to be honest. But I think that once you sort of encounter this light, this vow, this working, I think it was either Donron, or maybe it was I think Tonlon that said, or maybe Vasubandhu actually. Anyway, no one who encounters it passes by in vain. You can't just go on as if nothing happened.
No, and that's true. That is very true. That is very true in my Buddhist, my Jodo Shinshu experience, is I can't unring the bell that I've encountered this teaching. Hence, we're here, and it's frustrating as bleak.
And it's driving you nuts.
Exactly. You know, but it's a similar thing with now, you know, with which is one of the issues, you know, I can't unring the bell of what I've learned of Nichiren Buddhism. And those two are those two are very, with any other form of any other school of Buddhism that I've explored, whether it's, you know, the Theravada, you know, or the Zen, Vajrayana, Tibetan, Bon traditions, there's a lot in there that's like, boom, yeah, you know, especially with Vajrayana, Tibetan, Bon, for the cosmology, and Zen with the description, you know, the description of the mind state, what that is, what, you know, what suchness is, what enlightenment is, what, do you know what I mean? And with the, you know, with Theravada, like, you know, the very clear, okay, this is the problem, this is the boom, 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 this is what you do. Do you know what I mean? It's very, you know, yes, practical. All that is very like, you can't undo that, you know, in terms of just, clear cut, but like, but yet expansive at the same time. But it's a different thing with these two schools. It's a different, you know, and it brings me to the point. This is another thing I wanted to talk about, where I do this similar thing in tradition of when you hear stories of monks or masters who petitioned bodhisattvas, and like Shinron did, or Honen, I think at one point, didn't he do a similar, kind of, I thought, but definitely Shinron, though, definitely Shinron, he.
Oh yeah, you're talking about when he secluded himself in the Rokakudo, the
Yes,
temple.
yeah, was that Honen?
That was Shinron,
Shinron,
and
yeah,
he
Shinron.
was
Sorry, so Shinron.
yeah he was
Yeah,
seeking
and
guidance. Yeah,
yeah,
and then,
exactly. And Nichiren did a similar thing, and other, did,
right.
and that's what it kind of makes me go, okay, I want to do that. I actually do that sort of thing within myself. I ask,
Yeah.
please, show me, please, direct me, please make it so that there's no question. Do you know what I mean? This is the true path.
Ask the
And I
Buddha
do that.
within, I believe
To
Paul
whether
Roberts.
it's, to both Amida, to the original Buddha, of beginningless past, to
Mm.
the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. I say, just show me, give me a sign, give me a dream, give me do you know what I mean? A vision, like,
Yeah,
it,
yeah. It would be nice if we could, got in our day and age. Certainly would save a lot of trouble.
yeah,
But I think that um yeah, I totally get like the desire for something, for
yeah,
a miraculous kind of, the heavens to open, and the, like in the larger sutra where the voice of the Dharmakaya, the Dharma body, like, proclaims that Dharmakara, his vows are sure to be, fulfilled, and so on. But we live in the the modern world. I guess you could, make some sort of attempt to do something like that, like what Shinron did. But I think for me personally, and part of it is I can only really speak for myself. You have to ask other people about what they have experienced, but I know that even before I came to Shin Buddhism, or Buddhism generally, I already had this kind of this feeling or this sense that the ultimate, sort of, the, so to speak, the supreme truth, or the truest form of reality must be some sort of light. I had that very kind of, I had sort of my comparative studies of religion that sort of kind of brought me to that point. So I knew that must be the case, but I didn't have a name for that. I was just sort of conceptualizing it. And then along comes, the three Purlian Sutras, and Shinran Shonin, and says that the Buddha is of light, is Amida, the infinite light, the Buddha of infinite light. And I was like, wow, that I did, without even knowing it, I had been searching for this, and then here it is. It just kind of comes and hits me in the face in a good way.
Blinded by light.
And so that was a pivotal, I had already, I guess, been kind of moving in that direction. So, it was very much a pivotal kind of realization to see that, oh, this whole teaching is a teaching of light, which is infinite wisdom. And of course, as Reverend DeCour says, the light that shines on all there is wisdom. And then the light that embraces each of us is compassion. And of course, it's the same, light. And that is Namo Amida Butsu. That's what we call Namo Amida Butsu. But Namo is me, and the Amida Butsu is Amida Buddha. And they're in dynamic it's a dynamic relation, between bamboo and Buddha that you really have to kind of dig into. But I know your frustration. I totally hear your frustration. And
similar
I think
experience of it.
hitting the wall, is the thing that happens. I mean, I have ups and downs. I don't always, I have frustrations spiritually and otherwise. Everybody does, I think. But I think that it's kind of like I really like what Reverend Ray said, when we met in LA. And he said that, I have confidence in that the path of Shinron is the path for me. And there's something when you kind of settle your heart on that. Now it may take more for different people to come to that conclusion. I understand that, but there is something about and Shinron said the same. I trust what my teacher Honan told me. It's not so much a personal commitment, I think, as it is a giving up of the delusion that I can get there on my own steam.
Yeah.
But that itself comes about through the engagement with. I do have something I want to suggest to you, though, and I'm not saying like if you want to investigate other paths, I think that's great, and I even kind of encourage it. I don't necessarily think that you should necessarily make like a sort of necessarily a vow, like I'm only going to do this one school of Buddhism for my life, because one of the problems with that is if you actually truly find that Jodo Shinshu is a path for you, or whatever path, you won't need to make that kind of vow, that kind of promise.
We had that discussion on Messenger. I mean, I did make that decision about Jodo Shinshu, and I think partly that was a response to what we're talking about with this frustration of just being tired of, tired of like going back and forth and things. But the interesting thing is whether or not I'm at the point where I'm hitting the wall in these frustrations, or whether I'm so feel so a part of Jodo Shinshu and I can't, I'm just, so, sort of, it just all seems clear, and I'm, you know what I mean? Either way, I'm always exploring other Buddhist paths. I'm always to expand my understanding of Buddhism in general.
Right.
So it's just the difference is whether I'm doing it out of a feeling of, okay, well, this is just, I'm just trying to understand Buddhism better through the Jodo Shinshu lens, or I'm doing the same thing, only within me, there's this other thing. Well, should I be doing this other path? Should I be doing Lotus Sutra Buddhism? Should I, do you see what I mean?
And
either way, I'm going to be doing it. I'm still going to be a big tent Buddhist, as I've said for a long time. But but for me, I'm going to just stick to that. I made it. I made the decision. I'm going to do it. However that works out, I'm gonna do it. I understand what you're saying, that you don't necessarily need to do that if you know what I mean, once you see the truth of it. Yeah.
If you do in fact discover that it is the path for you, then you won't. You won't.
There's no need for that.
Yeah. But I do think it's an admirable. I mean, I think it could be a helpful, skillful means, let's say. And I think what I wanted to say was, the fake it till you make it
Exactly. Another one of those aspects that Jodo Shinshu is so like a freaking 12-step program. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I've thought of that all these years. I've always come back to that. Yeah. I'm just gonna do what is, you're meant to be doing, do the dialogue, do the, until you fake it till you make it. Yeah.
But I think what I'm
Skill and
going to
means.
suggest,
The good skill and means.
well, I actually think that the fake it till you make it is what some other groups do, and I don't think it's a good idea. Actually, I think that it's better to be honest with yourself and about where you are and what you are actually feeling, like you were in the messenger. You said what your very words.
When I'm saying fake it till you make it, I didn't mean, okay, I'm going to pretend to myself that I mean, I'm going to still, even though I have all these raging, frustrating doubts, another brick in the wall, do you know what I mean? Just, I'm still going to stick with it and do all the things I'm meant to be doing, which is what I'm doing. It doesn't change. That doesn't change.
Right.
Whether I'm in this state, this mind state of frustration about the path, or I'm feeling, oh, I'm so Jodo Shinshu. It's like ridiculous. You know what I mean? I'm still doing the same things. I'm still Dharma dialogue. I'm still reading the teachings. I'm still exploring other aspects of Buddhism. It doesn't, what I'm actually doing doesn't change. It's just the mind state the state of mind and emotion that I'm in when I'm doing it. But the actions remain the same. If you see what I mean, that's what I meant by, and that's what really in the 12-step program, that's really what they're saying. It's like, you're not pretending to yourself that you're okay and that you're, I've got it all together now, and I'm Mr. Sobriety, Mr. Serenity, Mr. 12-step. It's just, you do the actions as if you were.
Right.
I mean, you do the action that does not, when I say it that way, and I don't mean it in the, but yeah, I think you
not in the Silicon Valley.
People at other schools that literally cultivate people faking it. Till they make it. Literally just trick yourself. Just, do you know what I mean? Or make things conducive to that kind of people convincing themselves of certain things and it not. Yeah, I think that goes on, but that's not the way I'm saying.
That presentation doesn't get very far, I don't think, with the it's objective truth, and you either believe it or you don't, and if you don't, it's your problem, kind of.
Well, that's something we did not in that same way, but you just reminded me of what I said about the whole teaching about calculating mind. I think that's a whole discussion where I say, yes, nothing hinders the light. The teaching is nothing. There's no hindrance to the light. There's no barrier. Our kleshas don't block it. Nothing blocks it at all. Not even our own minds, not our bodies. Nothing in life. Nothing. It goes everywhere. It's in every direction. It's So what's the problem come down to? It comes down to calculations. But again, it's the blaming the practitioner. And then that skeptical mind goes, well, how's that different than any other religion? That's that skeptical. So I think we need to do a whole, I know we've discussed how many times have we discussed calculations, but I think we need to really start with that. Have a session that very, okay, it still looks like we're being blamed, which we are to blame. So
and
that's the karmically speaking, my life is my fault. You know what I mean? My provisional existence. My provisional existence. Well, I don't mean it in a
or deserve.
I know. But
really
to me, it makes sense for me. And it doesn't bother me in that same way. Like it doesn't bother me to go, karmically this is, and it actually calms me down about a lot of things and actually resolves a lot of things that otherwise I would be have been very tormented in the past about. about my life. If I accept karma, that's another thing is this is why I'm going back to basics. If I accept karma, if you accept that, really, that's one of the foundational teachings, and ignorance that, brings all that about, then okay, it's much easier to resolve and accept and things that have happened in my life than if, do you see what I mean? And things I experience around all this, and saying that I feel more tied to the ghost realm than I do the human realm, at times. And so anyway, but accepting karma, it lets me breathe, it goes, okay, I don't need to be as angry about this. I don't need to be feel like it's, oh, poor me, injustice, victim. I don't need to be a victim. It's just, okay. Yep.
Right.
This is what it is. Yeah. In the ordinary kind of scheme of things, yes, these certain things happening to people is not okay. That happened to me. Things that have happened to me in the ordinary human realm, justice, goodness sense. The things that have happened to me are not just and are horrible and should not happen to people, or are wrong to happen to people. But karmically, I'm not wrapped up in that anger anymore.
We're not victims, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not. Do you see what I mean? And it helps me. It helps me a lot. Karma, the teaching of karma, in that sense. So anyway, wow. So just to bring this back and wrap it up, where were we? What were we just talking about?
Well, I think what I was going to suggest is, and I know maybe you've already done this many, many times, but one more time, just take the 3 Pure Land Sutras, the English, the translation, and try to just put away, put out of your mind, just for the time, just lay it on the table, everything you know or think you know about Jodo Shinshu, and so on and so forth, and just read the sutras.
Yeah.
Don't, and just let the text just speak to you. Don't try not to. Now I know we always do, because our monkey mind and everything, but try not to stick your oar in, so to speak, and well, is this this or that, or just read it.
Yep, as it is.
And then kind of see what happens. And maybe do that, read it and then say some nimbutsu, maybe just think about what you read. And because I really do agree with what Reverend Ray said.
Come back. Yeah.
That he thinks in most cases, if people just read the Pure Lands, the 3 sutras, and then read the collected works of Shinran, in that order, it resolves most of the issues of the people. Okay. But people don't do it. People don't do it. So so you have to do it.
It's interesting because so many things. This is where Jodo Shinshu is solidly Mahayana. That's really in any Mahayana tradition, or any Buddhist tradition. That's how your attitude toward the sutra is meant to be. You're meant to, approach it. Let the teaching speak to you. The sutra,
right.
Be the sutra. Be the teaching. Yeah. Similar to the approach of us to, the Buddha of mind, the Buddha light that's shining. It's especially in Mahayana. It's a very similar. It's a very similar approach. It's just we focus on Amida.
Yeah.
It's all focused.
Yeah, well, because the sutra is life itself.
Shining to us. Yeah.
And it's the truth that is, but it's being presented to us in words. So you can just enjoy it. You don't have to. Now, I'm not saying there's not a place for, critical analysis and commentary and all that. stuff. That's all important. That's all good too. Academic and all that. I mean, a lot of great stuff. But I'm just saying, for now, just sort of read the words and let them speak. Don't try to force anything. Don't try to impose a specific interpretation on the text, whether that be historical or allegorical or some whatever. Just read it and kind of enter into that let it bring you into that Dharma realm, that world of the Dharma, where you are kind of just, so to speak, sitting there listening to Shakyamuni, and just, so that would be my recommendation.
It's like the old story says, the old story of when the teacher and the potential student are going to have tea, and the teacher is pouring the tea and just keeps pouring and pouring, and
exactly,
and what are you doing? Good old Paul Roberts always came back to that one. Just empty your cup. Your cup is, just empty your cup. Just lay it aside for now. You don't have to give it up. Just lay it aside and let the.
It's true. We come to these things with all these ideas and ideations, calculations,
perceptions,
all this stuff, right?
Baggage.
You have to have what they call in Zen, a beginner's mind, where you you just start from as if it was day one.
And that's why I want to go back again to the Buddhist Basics, series that we started last week. Partly that is just go back to the beginning, So, but anyway, sorry,
So I definitely don't. I want to be clear. I'm not encouraging you to ditch.
I haven't done that in a long time. I haven't read. I am right through. I haven't read the Pure Land, sutras like right through. Just, do you know what I mean? In a very, 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 very long time, or heard them right through. Or, well, that's not true, because I do listen to Yana. Have you ever heard of Yana Sounds channel on YouTube? Very excellent. This lady, East Asian lady, I don't know if I can't pick up on exactly what the accent is, but if you read, just everything she does on her channel is reading the sutras. Always does the opening kind of, the opening salutation for opening, reading a sutra, and at the beginning, and then just she reads sections of it. And I do listen to that. I have, many times listened to each of them through that channel, right through. But it's been a long time since I read it and just sat down and
great.
I've read more read Shinron's teachings. Do you know what I mean? So
Shinron would tell you to read the sutras.
He would, exactly. So it actually has been a long time. So when you told me that via messenger, that's what Reverend Ray had said. It was like, I do need to do that again.
And it's been a while, to be honest. It's been a while since I've read them through completely, but I have in the past, and I know from experience that when you do that, it's you see things and you start to feel think about things in a different way. So it might be a good kind of a sort of a, what do they call it, a soft reboot. a soft reboot.
Exactly, along with that, Buddhist space,
your Dharma drive.
Exactly, along with the, what we're going to be doing at the Buddhist Basics. But also this, Jodo Shinshu Basics. Read the sutras, read the collected works, and then we'll see what happens.
And also the basics, a lot of the basics of Buddhism are in the larger sutra. It has the entire
Oh yeah,
life of
true.
the
Yeah, it gets the
Dharma.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of envious of you for being looking. Maybe I should read the sutras
I
too.
wish I could go back to the beginning and do it all over for the first time.
Yeah.
From the game. Have you ever seen the game? Have you ever seen
Maybe
the with Michael Douglas, the game from the
no.
90s? No,
No.
really good movie.
I'll
But
put it on the.
there's a point where somebody says that to him before he really knows what's going on. And I wish I could go back to the beginning. Experience it all again first time.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but
yeah.
beginner's mind, empty the cup, just as much as you can. I mean, don't kick yourself if you can't do it perfectly, obviously, but and just let it speak to you, Enter
Yes.
that dharma realm.
Exactly.
It would
Beginner's
be
mind.
my suggestion for you if you are if you're at this point considering or serious about pursuing. And just to be clear, I'm not
I am.
recommending
My seriousness.
follow
I
tradition.
don't think I've ever been more serious about my pursuit than I am at now at present. So yeah, okay, that is a good plan. I will begin that journey.
We could even do, if it's helpful. I mean, I guess we could do like a sort of reading group where we both read, so many pages, and then we just sort of discuss it the next, week.
Yeah, we could. That's a whole nother excellent idea for a series, definitely. So, all right, well, great. We've been going for quite a while.
Yeah, we've been going quite a while, I think.
And I'm mindful of the time at your end.
Right.
And also, we had kind of a half hour offline. Now we've gone almost about hour and 20 minutes online recorded. So yeah,
it will be edited later in post, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, we didn't even record the first half hour. So yeah, but anyway, so yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's been an excellent discussion. As I say, the power of the Sangha is very evident when I get to this point of hitting the wall, as Reverend Inagaki Sensei says. When I come to the the Dharma dialogue space, it even the day of, it changes. There's something that happens because of that Sangha refuge, definitely, in my attitude and ability to kind of think it through and not be all wrapped up in it, and so anyway, thank you very much. So yeah, shall we say some too?
Absolutely. All right.
Hold on, sorry, let me get my incense. I keep my all my Nenju in the box with my incense, so they always have that lovely scent, clean. It's like it almost cleanses them. Lovely scent of the incense. Anyway.
All right. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Vinam. Naman.
Naman. Excellent. Well, until next time.
Indeed.
Take care.
All right. You too.
All the best. Bye.
All right. Bye.